So this is Exhibit 203. This is from another teacher to you at 9:32 a.m. Again, Tuesday, November 30th. Here's the photo I took of his paper in case you need it, with a picture of a math assignment. Now, what happened in between the time you saw this email, it was sent at 8:05, to this email sent at 9:32?
So I was on the phone with other parents at the time I received the first email. And when I was done with that phone call, at that time, Mr. Ejak actually was in my office as I was wrapping up the phone call.
Okay.
He had been presented with a picture of the math assignment from the math teacher and wanted to make sure I was involved in that
This picture?
conversation. I don't know exactly what it was. I know he was showing a picture on a cell phone.
Okay.
I would believe it was the initial one, but I do not know that for a fact. I never saw the cell phone.
That's fair.
So he wanted to involve me in a conversation with the student about the math assignment, and I wanted to talk to the student about the email that had been sent that morning. I do not know if he was on that email, Mr. Ejak was on that email about the watching the video or not.
Okay. So we talked about the email from that morning. We're referring to this email regarding
Yes.
the video.
Yes.
Okay.
So this is the information I had at the time that I was making a decision to meet with the student, and Mr. Ejak had the information that there was a math assignment with something on it.
So at the time that you decided to meet with the defendant's son, you hadn't even seen this picture yet?
That is correct.
Okay. That's
So
Go ahead.
when Mr. Ejak came and mentioned that there was something going on with the student, I made the decision that I was going to go to the math class and retrieve the student. It's less concerning oftentimes for a counselor to walk into a class than a dean, because I could be talking about 50 different things with the student.
Okay.
So it just isn't going to raise suspicion for others. So I went to the class and asked the student if he could come with me, and I grabbed the math assignment as part of it.
So you grabbed the math assignment. So what's been admitted is Exhibit 128. Now this math assignment looks different than the one that was emailed to you. Did you receive an explanation as to why?
I didn't know there was a difference initially because for the first 30 minutes, all I had was the actual physical copy.
And that would be this in Exhibit 128?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So as I was meeting with the student in the office, I had the email about what had been sent about watching videos, and I had the copy that is currently on the screen of the math assignment. So I initially asked the student, what was it that you were watching in class? Why am I receiving an email from a teacher one day after I know you just had a conversation about what's appropriate in school and what's not? The student told me he was watching a video game on his phone. Not uncommon, also not school appropriate, especially given the context of what we had just had in the conversation.
Okay.
So we had a conversation about making that good choice and making wise choices. And then I grabbed the math assignment and I put it in between the student and I. So Mr. Ejak was actually in that meeting as well. He sat kind of off to my right. The student was across from me, across from my desk. And I asked him, okay, so we can talk about, making good choices in the classroom, but let's talk about this. And I put the assignment in between us.
And what stood out to you when you saw this?
Well, I wanted him to explain it to me, but some of the things that actually stood out to me the most were what was written on it. Because I read something like, the thoughts won't stop, and I could read help me underneath it being crossed out.
Is this the part right here that I'm highlighting?
Yes.
Okay.
I read harmless act. I saw what looked like one body, and my initial concern was that this student's drawing some things that lead me to think he might hurt himself.
Okay.
So I asked him to explain what's on here, because I didn't want it to just be me interpreting what he wrote. I wanted to hear what he had to say about it. And he told me initially that it was a video game, that he liked drawing video game characters, liked liked that area of entertainment and that he wanted to go into video game design. So then I told him, okay, you can tell me that, but let's explain these words. Here you write the thoughts won't stop. Here you write harmless act. And here you write, I'd have to look at it, I think it was like my life is useless or something like that, where he crossed it out.
This part that's highlighted right here?
Yeah, and I said, that doesn't sound like a video game to me.
So I take it then you didn't accept his explanation of the video game?
Not in totality, no, because I wanted to gain more context.
So did you make a decision at that point to do something?
Well, as he continued talking, he then started talking about things that were going on in his life.
What do you mean things that are going on?
Well, he mentioned that school's been tough during COVID, that a family member had passed recently. A family dog had died. He said a friend moved away. And as he was talking, I just kept hearing all these themes of sadness.
What was his demeanor like?
Appropriately sad. It matched what he was saying.
Okay.
And so at that point, I told him, okay, this is a lot that you've got going on, and I want to make sure that we get you help. And so I told him, when I hear all of this, what I do is I'm going to call a parent. And I asked him, is there a parent you'd rather I call? He told me mom would probably be easier to get a hold of. So I called mom first and left a voicemail. This would have been approximately 20 to 25 minutes after the meeting started.
Okay.
So at this point, I just decided that it was enough that I wanted to involve a parent.
All right. You said you called mom first and left a voicemail.
I did.
Did you also call the defendant, James Crumbley?
I did, and it was right after leaving a voicemail. I'm not entirely sure if he answered or not. I think he did, but it was almost like there was just air on the other end.
Okay.
So I wasn't able to leave a message or anything. Mom then called me back a few minutes later, and we talked for, I would guess, 5 or 6 minutes. She was on speakerphone with her son for a brief part of that conversation, and I asked her to please be able to come in, that I had some concerns I wanted to go over. I texted her.
Did you specify those concerns?
Well, I texted her a picture of the math assignment. And by that time, I also then received the email that I think you put up earlier of the math assignment.
By this point in time, this was 9:32 a.m. that Miss Morgan sent it. Was the defendant's son already in your office at that point?
Yes.
Okay. And then did you have a chance to look at this picture as well?
I looked briefly at it, but I was already on the phone with mom at that point.
Okay, this is Exhibit 130. This is what we refer to as the original drawing.
Okay.
And you said you were on the phone with Jennifer Crumbley at that point?
Yeah, so I emailed her then the original drawing as well.
Okay, so you sent this to the student's mother?
Yes.
Okay. And did you have a chance to look at this?
I did look at it. Most of it confirmed what I thought was under the scribble outs, and I also noticed some words were added.
Okay. What words stood out to you?
What do you mean?
When you said words were added, what did you notice?
On the one where he added words, I know he added like OHS rocks or we're all friends here, which I kind of took as just a 15-year-old writing things. It
Okay.
didn't.
So you're referring to this Exhibit 128, some additional words?
Yes, he added video game this is, OHS rocks. I think I Love My Life So Much was added.
Okay.
Things that were facetious.
And that was after he was seen with this, is that correct? It was after he created this, Exhibit 130?
Yes, it existed in its form as Exhibit 130 prior to the edits that I had seen on the paper.